Well, good morning, listener. Good morning, viewer. It's really good to be with you. It just wouldn't be complete without you. Now, I have Pat McGard with me, and that's not bad, not bad, but you're the person that counts. Anyway, how are you, Pat, this morning?
Granted, I think we're starting to finally see the offshoots of spring on the way.
Aye.
The light out there today is actually quite nice. It's
Oh,
that
it's
sort of
lovely.
spring
Yeah,
light.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That's right. You'd swear it was a spring day. We're only in the middle
yeah,
of early January.
yeah.
So the bit.
Well, what was it? Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day it is. This is Friday. I think it was 12 degrees, double digits, dude. So
Aye. Then the
what's this
days during the
remarkable
week.
change from last week? Yeah, yeah.
I think was it last week? I was down to -3 or
It was -8, minus
so.
eight. I think
Jeez.
around somewhere around here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, the weather's, if we get a roof put in this country, we'll be flying. When I
we'll
say
be
country,
flying.
I don't mean Ireland as in the Republic of Ireland. I mean this country.
This island.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, okay, Pat. Well, we start with, oh God, I sort of hate starting with it, but you have to, is Gaza.
Yeah.
Are you happy to see this deal that's been done, this ceasefire that's promised from either Sunday or
Dude,
Monday? I'm not sure which.
I have zero faith in the Israelis. I have zero faith. I think Netanyahu yesterday was looking for an excuse to knock the deal off the head again. He was arguing over very little, and so on. And the Hamas said they had totally kept their side of the bargain, and Netanyahu saying it's something to do with some sort of sequencing and that they had reneged on it. And they said they hadn't, and I would believe Hamas a lot hell of a lot quicker than the Israelis. Dude, the Israelis are going to keep killing until Sunday, even though they know there's a ceasefire coming. They have killed so many, they're just killing now for the sake of killing to send a message. I think they're the most disgusting nation on earth. I genuinely do. They have, and what I find absolutely atrocious and grotesque is the fact that if you read the statements from Joe Biden and Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer had the neck to say that those who on October 7th were murdered, but 46,000 people, quote, lost their lives. That sort of hierarchy of death, that sort of obnoxious. And by the way, it's almost as if the Israelis are the innocent party here, and no, they've done nothing wrong in their history, and these Palestinians and Gazans are totally to blame for it. It's a disgusting misrepresentation of what's happened.
Do you think will the ceasefire hold, Pat? Because I was listening to a guy last night, and he was talking about he was being asked by an interviewer, an Israeli, asked would the would they let medicine in and so on. No, nothing. No medicine,
Mm.
no food, no water, no electricity, nothing until they surrender and give us back our uh,
Yeah, there's
kidnapped.
this Ben Gavir, that's has no, but the cabinet today, I don't know, Jude, aren't they meeting about it as we speak?
Hmm.
I don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but if they agree this deal, there's supposed to be 600 trucks allowed in daily. So I don't know, I don't know who's going to enforce that, but there's supposed to be all these things then happening. Jude, I would love to know who's going to be responsible, who's going to pick up the tab for the reconstruction of Gaza. Jude, I think there's a massive wake up call for a lot of us. Jude, I no longer have any faith in the good character or the moral high ground of the West. Jude, I think they're going to be forcing a lot of people right across the world into the arms of China and Russia and all the rest of it. Because I don't think anybody in the West believes a word now the Americans and the Brits say in regard to fairness and all the rest. And by the way, the BBC hasn't come out of this well at all. There are certain allegations that BBC is working hand in glove with the Labour government to ensure that the coverage reflects their position, not the reality on the ground.
Well, a reporter, it might have been BBC, in fact, said that in the days leading up to the ceasefire, the few days it's in it, that they would, both sides would be intensifying their attacks because that's the way it was to go out playing strong. And in a way, there's a
Yeah.
desperate logic to that. But, I still kind of resent this notion of Hamas versus Israel. I mean,
Right.
I heard it.
That couldn't. Jude, how can Hamas go out strong? They're underground. It's been a defensive action by Hamas the whole way.
Mhm. They say that half of the people who fought for Hamas, the fighters, half of the original fighters, were the orphans from previous conflicts with Israel. Can you
Yeah.
imagine what they're, and they also say that the Hamas ranks, which have been depleted obviously by the IDF, are
Yeah.
already more than filled. There's more
Yeah.
than enough. It's like
Even
bloody
Anthony
Sunday all over
Blinken,
again, Pat.
yeah, Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, already said that. Jude, by the way, just to digress a wee bit, uh, yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Blinken, he was trying to do a sort of a final sort of, a farewell tour of the press. And finally, a guy called Max Blumenthal absolutely went for him and was escorted out. And a second guy went for him as well, saying, you've basically ruled over genocide. The 400 journalists have been killed. You've done nothing about it. In fact, there was a deal on the table that you didn't force the Israelis to take way back in the day. And so there was two guys escorted out. So much for freedom of the press. It strikes me. All of the years back, the Americans say we are a democratic country, and about Pravda and all the rest of it. The American media are like sheep, absolute sheep. No one is, everyone's scared to take on the Jewish lobby.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's because they're so powerful. It's a question of might
Yeah,
being right, and I suppose maybe it was
yeah,
time we admitted that to ourselves. Like Machiavelli's The Prince, that
yeah,
book that he wrote advising rulers how to rule. And I mean, he
yeah.
laid it on the line. If you want to beat your enemies, be strong. Better to be feared than loved, he says. And
Yeah, and well, of course, as guiding principle was the end justifies the means.
Of course, but that's how they proceed. That's how they proceed. I'm trying to think of a
Yeah,
country that hasn't abided by that. Certainly in the West,
yeah,
and I'm sure in the East as well. I mean, Russia too. They do what they want to do, and there's no question of morality. They see if they have morality, they probably have morality in their private lives, like Hitler was supposed to be fond of children and so on. So they
yeah.
probably have a decent private life. But the things that they do are monstrous. I mean, Joe Biden seems to me the most obvious example. I would have bought the whole fairy tale of how when he came to Ireland and all the things he did and his connections. Now he told the BBC off, I'm Irish, I'm not British, so on. But
Mm.
not after you hear that the amount of people that died because he kept supplying, and everybody now acknowledges it. It was America that was supplying the weapons that dealt death to all those children, and is still dealing deaths. And it must be terribly frustrating. We used to go on about this at the time of the Troubles, but it must be terribly frustrating for the few people who died. Like there's 100 killed since this
Yeah,
ceasefire was announced, not
yeah,
implemented, but announced. But the IDF killed 100 Palestinians in that day. I suppose 2 days maybe. Um,
yeah.
so the suffering it's just unspeakable. Um, shall we move to another topic, Pat?
There's no point. We're not going to add anything to the
Well,
sum of
only
misery in Gaza. Yeah,
somebody said you can't. How many times can you say that Israel is sure bastards? Um, which is not diplomatic language, but there is a truth in it. Okay, let's
But
talk about it.
I don't think you'll find too many people disagreeing with you, other than the sort of the establishment in America.
Maybe. Justin McCarthy, a well-known journalist and writes for the Irish Times, she draws a nice comparison in an article today. The article's headed, "Both Michael Lowry and Elon Musk know the kingmaker is more powerful than the king."
Yeah,
And her point was that Michael Lowry is the guy who's been leading this group of independents and striking
yeah.
bargains with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And likewise, Elon Musk is such a rich and powerful guy. He can, well, they seem to be suggesting that he's pulling Trump's strings. I don't quite buy that, I think. Do you?
No, I don't buy it, but Trump's given him a hell of a lot of latitude to do whatever the hell he wants.
He's got a coterie of these people around, and this is the thing she more than her just would say it. They'd say we're now moving into the time of the rule of the oligarch. That is to
Yeah,
say, very, very, very rich people like Musk, like your man from Facebook, like
Zuckerberg.
Open AI as well.
Yeah,
ChatGPT. I have it here on my computer, at the bottom of my computer. All these big tech giants are all bending the knee, or as they say, kissing the ring of
Yeah.
Trump. Do you feel that's a very significant change in the US, Pat, or not?
I'm totally Jude. You know, someone see the day of the no, what was it, Roosevelt or someone came from a farm background and all the rest. Dude, these days, like the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is not that great when you think about it. Basically, the choice in American politics now is Tweedledee, Tweedledum. There is nobody. There's no sign of. Basically, what is it? I keep going back to Noam Chomsky's famous one that basically you can have a debate, but it's confined, and as long as you can argue as much as you like, as long as within prescribed limits. But you come up in America and you say, right, I'm going to introduce a socialist party here. I am going to bring in wages, fair wages. And we're going to tax the rich, etc., etc., etc. You just watch the establishment, Zuckerberg, uh, uh, what do you call him, Elon
Musk.
Musk, all the establishment turning you. This is not the American way. This is a traitor, and all you'll get all this sort of stuff, left wing loonies and all the rest of it. Even though Jude, what the person might be saying is totally, completely, and utterly legitimate.
Yeah, yeah,
Jude, if you watch the most successful countries in the world right now, are left of centre. Norway, Sweden, and Denmark.
yeah.
Their indexes in regard to happiness, good health, education are far superior to America's. But in America, if you followed the Scandinavian model, you would be a loony leftist.
I was listening to, I seen this may seem off the point, but I was listening to Joe Brawley's Free State podcast yesterday, and he had Chris Mullen on. Remember Chris Mullen? Chris
Yeah,
Mullen,
yeah.
the MP the Labour MP that fought for the
Birmingham six.
Birmingham Six, exactly,
Yeah,
and successfully fought, and apparently not only got them their freedom, but changed the whole way that the law operated in these cases.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he was he had a book called the what was it? A Very British Coup, and I watched it last
Uh,
night. It's a film that's been made.
Ray
Ray
McNally,
McNally,
who was
very
raised.
man, yeah.
Uh,
But it was
uh,
exactly that, where this guy, a left leaning, a left Labour man, a real Labour man,
yeah,
was elected. Ray McNally played the part, was elected Prime Minister. And he promptly started saying, well, I want to see to it that working people get a decent wage. I want to see a decent health service. And I also want to see us come out from under the shadow of the Americans. And we don't want nuclear weapons from America on our soil.
uh,
And, the whole hell broke loose as a result.
mm,
But it was a very interesting example of what happens when somebody challenges the establishment. It ends in a bad way. I don't want
uh,
to spoil it for people, but it's on YouTube and it's well worth watching. A Very British Coup. It's very old fashioned now, actually, the music and so on. It sounds a wee bit
yeah.
melodramatic, but the point is a good one. Why is it that when a Labour leader takes office as Prime Minister, you don't see a radical redo for working people? You really don't. You wouldn't.
No, no. If you look at it now, and it's a big issue, and I think a lot of people better start waking up. Keir Starmer is every bit as a part of the establishment. There's no Naid Bevan coming up in the Labour Party. Like I would love to see Len McCluskey, uh, 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 what do you call him, Jeremy Corbyn, and what do you call the Irish guy, the trade union guy that was very Mick, whatever,
Michael Lynch.
Mike Lynch. I would love them to start a serious party and say, right, let's see how far we can get this party up and running because I think there's a crying out need. Dude, I know people like me are sick and tired of the corruption, the moral corruption, the absolute lack of any sorts of decency. When you look at America, it's corrupt. Britain's corrupt, and you just sort of say, are there any party that goes out there with policies of fairness, human rights, sort of based on, on doing the right thing.
Yeah. Now, the fact that this article that I was telling you about Justin McCarthy, she argues the case that the day of the oligarch has come. There are going to be these super rich people, all
Absolutely.
hits with Trump, and they're going to rule. And I remember, I thought when I read it, I said, oh, gee, that sounds awful. And it's pretty convincing too. And then I thought for a minute, and I said, Joe Biden. Joe Biden was busy supplying, hundreds of billions of
Uh,
dollars to kill innocent Palestinians. How close do I feel to Joe Biden? How close does the average American feel to Joe Biden? To what extent does the average American think they can in any way control their government? It has been always like this. It's just that Trump, I think, does it in a more open way. You could almost
mm.
accuse him of a degree of honesty. I mean, he's an obnoxious so and so, but at the same time, people are thinking, oh God, things are going bad now. They were always bad. They were always bad, only in a politer
No,
way.
but at one stage there was a sort of at least a public acceptance of dissent. Jude, and
I
what
don't know.
the
What about your man, Noam Chomsky said? You can disagree
uh,
within very strict limits, but you try stepping outside
uh,
that, and you said yourself with
uh,
regard to Britain.
yeah, exactly. But Jude, in America they're stamping. Even it's now illegal to boycott Israel. Jude, that wasn't years ago. Various councils and various states were allowed to do their own thing. It's now illegal.
In the
In
States, is
other
it?
words, and as well as that, the various people have lost their jobs for speaking out against Israel. It used to be that you had the right to say things.
Mm.
Not people mightn't agreed with them, but it's now an offence.
Aye, that's true. And what about, no, there's another side to that, Pat, and that is that
Yeah.
your man that runs Facebook has taken off the restrictions.
Fact
So
checking. Uh,
no fact checking anymore. So in fact,
uh,
you could say he has made free speech more possible. You mightn't like the free speech you
uh.
hear, but you could argue that he's making free
But
speech more possible.
right, but here's the point. Somebody could say Jude Collins is a 26-year-old gay man with 50, and who's going to check it, and who's going to say anything about, or that Pat McGarry has had 27 children by different women? Like, if nobody checks it, like, are we supposed to believe everything now that's on Facebook?
If they said that about you, Pat, the people would say, "I know, actually, you got the wrong person. That's Elon Musk you're thinking of." Elon Musk has like
Well,
12
Musk
children
has
with different women.
because
Uh,
many children by many different. Yeah,
but let's look and see if this thing with Lowry and with Musk holds up. She's saying that Lowry, I mean, Musk is a bad guy. I mean, he's a sinister figure and so on. But she says one thing you can say about him is that he hasn't been accused of abusing public office. He hasn't been convicted on tax charges. He wasn't given wads. Well, he didn't need it, but he wasn't given wads of money by big shots like O'Brien and so on. He
Dennis
didn't
O'Brien. Yeah.
have Ben Dunn build an extension to his house. Whereas all of those things is something that our friend Michael Lowry has done. The thing that I don't know if we talked about this before, but I think the thing that's really annoying is that both Neil Martin and Horace have defended having Lowry as the sort of spokesperson and welcoming him into, he hasn't got a ministerial post, but welcoming him into the government of the Republic. Uh, that's just closing your eyes to stuff that's going on.
Jude, the hypocrisy there. They won't deal with perfectly legitimate people from Sinn Féin who have done nothing, have no corrupt, people like Matt Carty, who I don't think he even has a parking fine. But let's ignore that. Jude, there's I hear a guy on one day and he said Michael Lowry is democratically elected, and that's the reality of life and so on. And I think that's the shield they put up all the time. But no, what you just read out there from Justine McCarthy, if that was Sinn Féin, they'd be jumping off the roof. So they ignore that. But the other thing, by the way, I was listening to one yesterday. The Healy Rays and various other independents, supported the government, the formation of the government. But they now also want to sit on the opposition benches so they can speak, so they can
Oh, they
have the
saw
benefit.
that. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Jude, you talk about a wheeze, and it's Gombinism at its height. There's a guy called Niall Collins on yesterday from Fianna Fáil saying there's no problem with this. Not Jude, it's disgusting. Basically, they're saying the Healy Rays and various other people are in talks with the government, and they're actually they're part of the government. Michael Healy Ray, I think, is getting a junior ministry, but his brother, who was with him during the talks, now wants to sit on the opposition benches so that he can have the right to sort of engage speaking rights. So in other words, they want their cake and they want to eat it.
You
In
do.
other words, it's total abuse of procedure.
Well, I don't know now. If the rules allow them to, I would blame the rules. I mean, I think it's a
Yeah, well,
very
okay,
bad thing it's allowed to
you might be
happen.
right there.
I don't think you
Yeah.
can ride the two horses, or you shouldn't be allowed to ride the two horses. But I have a funny feeling that there is ability, crack in the legislation
But
regarding that.
okay, but right, but the morality of it. So in other words,
Oh,
Danny
morale
Healy Ray can
matters.
get up.
Yeah, yeah.
Danny Healy Ray, who was with his brother during the negotiations, can now sit in his on the opposition benches and ask his brother a question that's totally set up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a pretty sad state of affairs. The Haley Rays sort of bring this more into the open, let's say, and Lowry presiding over it is just a
Uh,
joke. You know, this
it's
is a
gone
man
Venusm,
that
Jude.
they
It
have known
stinks.
for the last 30 years that this man
Yeah,
was this way. And yet
yeah,
they say, oh, so he's a man was elected. So, you know, anything to get
yeah.
power. That's what motivates, well, maybe all
Well, it's
political
a double
parties.
standard. They
Yeah,
won't talk with a whole lot of people in Sinn
fork
Féin.
tongue.
They keep referring back to Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness, Mark Carty, and all that modern generation. Mary Lou McDonald. They had no hand, act, or part in the troubles in the North. So that doesn't hold true. So
Uh,
even by the way, forget about the about whether the Adams and McGuinness, even that argument holds true for them. But let's move on. Mary Lou McDonald was born in what, the 80s. Basically, unless she was running around on a machine gun when she was four, you know,
I don't think
it's
so.
ridiculous.
She was a
Yeah,
convent-bred girl or a convent school
yeah.
girl, so I don't think she
Right,
would
and
have
he's,
it.
she
They
was a
don't allow
nice middle
machine guns
class.
into convents.
Weren't their family all Fianna Fáil?
Ah, that's
Yeah,
right. That's it. Well, she was Fianna Fáil too for the time.
aye, a
Yeah,
young Fianna Fáil. Like.
yeah, yeah. There was something I was going to say. You sparked my thinking, but I'll probably come back to it again. Oh yes, did you see that whole kick up about Jerry Adams and Starmer's going mad about it too, and of course the unionists as well. That Jerry Adams might be compensated, and hundreds of others for being interned
Yeah. Aye,
illegally. Do
aye.
you think will it come off? Is it?
No,
Are
Jude,
they right to be
no.
indignant?
Starmer has vowed to block it, and Kemi Badenoch, wasn't she the one that blocked kneecaps? Grant. Anyway,
Yes, I thought.
she says that it's shameful, and what else? She wrote I wrote it down somewhere. Whatever. No, it's just shameful. Anyway, Starmer said it was all down to the Legacy Act, that it was unfit for purpose and it was unlawful. And that's what's causing the problem. And he says he's going to rectify that. But the Daily Telegraph, it's going bananas. But it says we will never forget Starmer's betrayal and all this shit. So Jude, the Brits have got themselves in a great wee tizzy. Now, hey, it would be irony beyond irony if Jay Adams got compensation for it because of internment.
I'm not sure. Well, sorry, it would be in the eyes of the Brits, but I think
And
in
there
the
is
eyes
it.
of other
That's
people, they
what I'm
would
talking about.
say, don't think you're not judging Jerry Adams about other things like was he in the area, etc. You're judging him on this
Uh,
case where he was imprisoned and along with hundreds of others and served, I don't know, a
uh,
couple of years or something. I mean, that's either
uh,
legal or it's not. I think it's illegal.
uh,
And I think those
uh,
people, every single one
No,
of them, regardless of the
what I
fact
mean,
that it's Jerry Adams.
the irony, I would love it in a way because I would be really piss off a lot of the old colonels and the old fogies in their clubs. The guys who think they make the rules. I'd be just beyond measure hilarious.
But it just shows you, in my opinion, it shows that they judge not the law or the justice of the thing, but who's going to get this justice. Imagine
Yeah.
Jerry Adams being allowed money because this was the British law. Whoa, that's a terrible thing. I mean, that really reveals so much about them that
And
they.
I haven't followed the intricacies is that apparently the Home Secretary should have personally sanctioned these arrests, and he didn't. There was some junior minister, but they said it's something like this anyway, that the junior minister could act in loco of the senior minister and all the rest of it. So apparently that's not what it says in the rules. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. Apparently the Secretary of State should have personally signed off on all these, and he didn't.
But the point is, yeah, any number of people were interned without trial, and that's wrong. That's simply wrong. That's against the
They were
law.
all Catholics, dude.
Well, that kid probably deserved it. Okay, let's go on to uh, uh, a very, very sad case. it was on the TV last night. This question of this poor benighted Brown family, where
Ah, yeah,
their father, the father of the house, Sean Brown, was Sean, this Sean, yeah, was killed when he was closing Balai GAA club.
yeah,
They've
yeah.
been looking for truth. They've been hoping for public inquiry. I don't think they've got it, but I do know they have got financial compensation. Do you know if they've actually any further with it? I think they've abandoned the public inquiry. Have they?
Uh, no, no, I don't think there was the big inquiry yesterday. Apparently, your man Des Fahy, I think he's King's Counsel now. It used to be QC, it's King's Counsel.
Yeah,
He says Brady Brown is 87.
yeah.
She's been in court, I think, something like 57, 58 times looking for compensation. The British government have fought tooth and nail. Jude, if they have nothing to hide, why have they blocked it 57 times? Jude, the British, the Vahi, the QC said, or Casey said, there's an indelible stain on the British body politic because of this murder, because they're up to their eyeballs on it. Now, I don't know, Jude, no matter how much money the Brown family got, it wouldn't be enough, in my opinion.
That's right. I would take the money if I was in their shoes, but I'm just wondering if they've made the deal where they say, well, we're going to give up trying to get. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get a public inquiry any more than I think the Finucane family is not going to get a public inquiry either. Uh, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe I'll be open to being proved wrong, and I'd be delighted if I was, but I very much doubt it because the train would lead too high. I just thought there was something terribly sad about the way he was killed and the fact that he struggled. When they three or four of these guys set on him and they beat him and they put him into his own car and drove off and passed all these CCTV cameras, and then suddenly none of these cameras were working. Uh, it is
Yeah.
such an obvious and horrible case of collusion. And that poor little woman, 87 years old, I mean, she must have the courage of a lion that could keep on
Yeah.
going to. I mean, the whole court environment must be so foreign to her, or what must have been the first time she did it, that,
Yeah.
it must have been almost a culture shock. What am I doing here? Uh,
Aye. Well, the judge who said it was unimpeachable that there should be a public inquiry, Hilary Benn, he has appealed that to the High Court on the basis that he said it's not as simple as whatever. And the QC for the state yesterday said that no judge had the right to take to himself the right to order a public inquiry. That was the remit of the Secretary of State alone. What do you call it? Fahy said basically that it was an open and shut case for a public inquiry because they had no other remedy.
But maybe we shouldn't get too excited about. I mean, I often give out about selective outrage. How unionists
Yeah,
will fasten on to something and say, "That was a terrible. These people. How could we deal with these people? Look at what they did at King's Mill or whatever." That's selective, ignoring a lot of other things. Maybe we're being a bit selective here in our sympathy for Sean Brown and his family. It deserves sympathy, but there are hundreds of others. I mean, even they were to
sure, Jude.
query those hundreds of others won't get one.
Jude, I remember reading the story of an REC man shot dead by the IRA, and he had a daughter. I think she was about 3 or 4. And every time she heard a car coming into the driveway, she used to run and get her daddy's boots or slippers and take them to the door. It was taking tears from a stone. Everybody's got a story. The wee girl, she's daddy, 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 and run to the door. Good God, we're not all lacking in sympathy or selective outrage like that. But the reality is, 57 times the family have gone. It's 27 years since Sean Brown, 27, 28 years since he was shot
Isn't that
dead.
crazy?
No one has been prosecuted. No one has been charged. The family have got no. It was a horrible murder. And everybody knows there was collusion. Everyone. It's an open and shut case of collusion. What the collusion is, we don't know. But, the fact that the British government have blocked the case 57 times tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, and I gather that remember somebody, maybe it was the man's wife or widow, talking about initially being told the news her husband was dead, and they were told by
Yeah.
RUC, and I think they weren't making fun of them, but they weren't showing very much sympathy for this terrible
Yeah.
news they were bringing. Ah, leave that, leave
Yeah.
it, leave it, leave it, leave it. For
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a stroke or something. Final point, Pat. There's only 3 minutes left. Unionists are rejecting the claim that the Israelis were trying genocide. There was a motion passed in South Armagh. No, not South Armagh. I think it's Newry and Mourne. Uh, and they said there was ethnic cleansing of Protestants in South Armagh. So how could they stand up and say that they were going to pass a motion that was condemning Israel for ethnic cleansing? Do you think they had a point?
No, not at all, Jude. Yeah, ethnic cleansing. Jesus, Jude. You know, where was the ethnic cleanse? Jude, there was a whole lot of Unionists and Protestants lived on the west bank of the Foyle. They all, when Catholics started to move in, in fact, I remember there was a place, give you an example. I used to live in a place called Culmore. And it was quite a well-off area at one stage. There was a lot, but then they built a big estate, and a lot of Catholics moved in, and a lot of the old Protestant gentry type moved out. They went to the waterside. We forced them out, Jude. They just didn't want to live in that area because there was a lot of Catholics around.
Well,
Now, South Armagh, there was a war went on there.
can I just tell you something? That's the first time I heard that. I'd always been very aware of the fact that Protestants had left the West Bank and gone to the East Bank, but I always assumed that was for security reasons. You're
No, if
suggesting,
they were in the police, some of them went in. Yeah, yeah,
oh, well, that's fair enough. Because the same sort of thing happened in South Belfast. South Belfast
yeah.
was middle class, well off unionists. Then the rising middle class of the Catholics, lawyers and doctors and so on,
Uh,
began to grow in
yeah.
Belfast, and they moved into Malone area in South Belfast.
Mm.
And not immediately, but pretty swiftly, a large number of Protestants moved out to North Down, the Gold Coast,
Yeah,
as they call it. Um,
yeah.
so
Mm.
whether it's a case of